What's up, guys? This is the Fullstack Bro. In today's video, we're going to be talking about React Redux. Should you be using React Redux right now? What's the benefits of it versus the cons of it? Going to go through all of that with you guys. First and foremost, React Redux. If you work in React, you already understand that React uses reusable UI components to build React, web applications a lot more efficiently. Okay. So when it comes to React, there's so many different ways of managing state. There's React context, where you could have state live in that context. You have your parent component with state all there. You're going to be changing that state based off of a couple different variables. This could be when you're clicking on a button, when you're toggling something from on to off, you're setting something from true to false. Or if you're pulling from an API, you're setting the data that comes back from that API to a state that you could use throughout your components, right? And then what's going to happen is you take that state from the parent, you set it, you do whatever you need to do. You then pass it to a child component. Now, this child component would then ingest whatever state is being passed to it. If it's to display it on a screen, if it's to show a different functionality, that state will handle that in this child component. Now, if you have another child component that needs that state from the parent, this is where you're going to run into a problem. You're going to run into a problem where that state gets passed down from one component to the next, to the next, to the next, to where you're not going to understand the data flow of how that state is getting set and what you're actually doing with that state. Like, how is it changing? When it comes to a simple app, React context is the way to go. This is where all the values are going to be, all the state is going to be stored. So you could use context in multiple components just by using that custom hook that's utilizing context and that has access to it. So picture that parent component, right, that had all that state. We moved it into context. Now wrap that parent component into a context provider. And now anytime you're changing state, that state will live in that context provider, and then you could easily import the context into a child component of your choosing. As long as it's under the provider, you can do that. React Redux is a little bit more complicated, right? It's basically a centralized store for where state should live in. And it allows you to do updates to your state to where you could just pull it from a store, right, that you need that state for that component, and have callback actions to change the state or manipulate it and save data, whatever. So when it comes to Redux, there's a lot of good benefits of using it. I've used it in the past and it's actually been great. It really helped with just understanding where your state lives and what's going on with it. And then also when it comes to managing your state, understanding the life cycle of that state, it was easy enough to debug what's going on because it's all in one place. You're not passing it down from one, the parent component to the next. You have to really trace back from component to component to understand, okay, what's going on with the state, right? Redux takes care of this for you. You have your centralized store, you have multiple stores that you can create with the state living there. And you could just import that state to any component of your choosing. It just makes it easier for development. It makes it easier for the structure of your code so that you don't have a lot of state, living at the top of your component file. And you don't have to do a bunch of set states and all that stuff. You could essentially set up an action to change the behavior of your state in your app at any time. You don't need Redux for a simple app. If you understand where your state is going to be living and you're componentizing a lot of your components to where the state is being handled within that component, and you're not really passing down a bunch of props to each child component within that, you should be good to go. Now, if your app is super complex, then Redux is the way to go. It just organizes your code and it makes you more efficient. Original Redux, there's a lot of boilerplate to kind of get it set up, right? You have to set up a store, you have to set up the actions, you You have to set up the reducer, which will handle all the state that's going to be living in that store. You have to import that into your app layer so that the middleware can pick it up and that it gets trickled down throughout the entire app. And this becomes a problem where you're writing more code than you need to. What Redux has done, they created a more simplified version of it, which is called Redux Toolkit. The Redux Toolkit allows you to create slices of that state. So picture you want to have a store for just user state, right? If they're authenticated to the app, different permissions that they have, all the preferences for their user profiles and settings. You would create a user slice that takes a custom hook. You could create a custom hook based off of this slice and then use that throughout your app. If you need to see if they're authenticated to the app correctly, if they have permissions to view a particular area of the app, you can use a slice to mitigate that. A lot of the code in Redux is pretty much done for you, and the documentation is very good. When it comes to state and you want to manage it effectively, Redux is the way to go. For a more complex app, Redux Toolkit could create custom hooks, especially if you're good with writing functional components and you're understanding custom hooks. That's the way to go. So keep that in mind when it comes to building out your app. As you continue to scale, you're going to have to use a state management library somewhere. If you could get away with using just context that's built into the React library, go for it. All right. Hope you like this video. Please like, share, subscribe. Let me know if you've been using Redux. How do you like it? Hope you guys enjoyed the video.